Nice. Nice. It is June 14th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about Things 3, WWDC, dev betas, and so much more, because this is the iMore Show. Joining me this week is, of course, the Lori Gill. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing very good. How are you, Micah Sargent?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you, Lori Gill.
coming off of the end of the E3 conference, which technically isn't even over yet, but it's been quite the week. WWDC last week and E3 this week have just been bombarding me with
machine.
There's so many cool things coming out. My mind is just blown. So
I can only imagine. Well, this is a very special episode because we are also joined by the CEO of I said that correctly. For some reason, it sounded like it came out incorrectly. This is a very special episode because we are joined by the CEO of Cultured Code. It is Werner Jainik. Hello, Werner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here and happy to have you tell us a little bit about Things 3. In fact, that's the first thing that's on the list, on the Things 3 list. So let's get rolling. Things 3 got an update, and we would just love to hear sort of what's the overall kind of arching theme of this update. What can people expect? What can they be excited about?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've released, it's version 3.6 actually. So version 3 got released last year. And in the past year, we've been quite busy pumping out updates. So we're already at 0.6. And this is a really big one because it was all about the iPad. And we focused a lot on making the iPad a truly great, what we call a desktop class productivity device. So it's a lot about adding keyboard shortcuts to the app, but not just the shortcuts, also a lot of keyboard accessibility. And you can control the entire app from the keyboard. So that's what it's all about.
That's kind of, I have to admit that I'm not a shortcuts kind of girl. I don't usually use them all that often. But the one thing I noticed with my favorite thing about the update is using the arrow keys to get around and to drag things around so that I don't ever have to touch the iPad screen. That is amazing to be able to do that. Because when you're using your iPad with a keyboard, I don't know, Micah, if you experience this too, but I am always looking for the trackpad because I forget that I'm using an iPad. So this makes it so that I don't have to look for the trackpad. It's all right there on the keys, letting me move around.
Yeah, I love that too. It really takes things to that next step of being able to treat this device like a laptop in a way. And so it's nice to have that.
I mean, it's very interesting for us, ever since we shipped version 3.0, our users told us, well, this is a great app, but how about more keyboard accessibility for the iPad? And we wanted to do this for a long time. This has been a long project inside of Cultured Code working on this release. And very quickly, it became apparent because a large part of what Things is about is list making. And if you want to create lists, you need to tell the app, where do you want to insert stuff, where do you want to move stuff, and so forth. Like, you need a selection. So that's actually the first thing we had to build to make it greatly or keyboard accessible very well. And we were like, we built this, didn't know how it would turn out, and we were surprised ourselves by how far you can get at just having a selection in a list that you can arrow around with your keyboard, just like Lori said. It goes a long way to make the entire app feel so much more productive. So we're very happy how it turned out, and so are users. That was fantastic.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that you can type anywhere, and it will tell you, it will take you to the right list. So how does that process work? So if right now I've got my today view open on my things with my on my iPad with my keyboard. So if I just started typing the names of one of my lists, say Disneyland trip, it would automatically populate Disneyland trip up on my app. Let's try it right now.
Yeah, let's.
Oh, yep. So, okay. So what happens is I wasn't in any sort of field at all. There's no cursor on an iPad, but I was just in my Today view and I typed the word Disneyland and a window pops up in the front of everything that shows you the Disneyland trip. So then I can select it, and I'm guessing I can use my keys. Yep, I can use my keys to select it. So if I had 2 or 3 or 4 different Disneyland lists, which sometimes I do, I would actually be able to use the arrow keys to select it instead of having to reach out and tap the screen for it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so actually there's a cool name that goes with this feature. We call it type travel, which is a play on time travel. It's you type and immediately you travel where you go. Our marketing guy came up with that, and we laughed very hard in the office. Like, I know what we're going to call this, type travel. Actually, this is a feature that came to be while we were developing Things 3 for the Mac. Because we found out that actually in Things, in the normal state, like if you're just inside a list, typing stuff doesn't do anything. And we felt that is kind of weird. So we experimented a bit, and at first we tried what if starting to type would create a to-do right away, so you don't have to hit Command-N or the spacebar. And we tried that internally for some time, but it just didn't feel right. We would accidentally create to-dos, and it didn't feel natural. And so we searched for another possible use of this, and we thought, how about we start searching right away? And that was it. Like, we immediately fell in love with it.
Yeah,
so, now we brought that to the iPad.
Yeah, it's a really great feature. On iPhone or on Mac, we're much more comfortable with using the keyboard, and those shortcuts kind of come naturally to us. On iPad, there's not a lot of apps in existence that allow you to exclusively work on a keyboard. So being able to use this, at first I felt a little, I wouldn't call it uncomfortable. It's just it's not a familiar process to me. I've gotten used to sort of tapping at the screen, so I had to force myself to pay attention to the keyboard and not pay attention to the screen. And after just a few minutes, I created a list just to kind of test it out. And after just a few minutes of creating one list, all the shortcuts that Command N to start a new item, and Command S to call up the calendar so that I could pick the dates. It all happened much faster after just a couple minutes of kind of playing around with it. So it definitely feels intuitive. The way the commands are put in there it's pretty tight. It feels really good to navigate that. So
yeah, thank you. And I mean, a lot of it is building on the Mac. Clearly, like a lot of the things you're seeing on the iPad is just us taking all our habits that we have from working on the Mac all the last however many years, and just building that for the iPad. Like shift up down works if you want to start multi-selection. Command up down moves it around. You can option up down to start to jump to the beginning and end of the list. Like all of these details, we try to get them right. Because I'm sure not everybody will use all of these shortcuts, but I'm sure there's some people out there who will try.
Yes, I think that there's 70 shortcuts. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you count them all. Yeah.
I'm looking at the list that we'll link in our show notes for anybody who has ever thought about getting Things 3 or already have Things 3 and do want to get used to the shortcut commands on the iPad. There's a list. They're separated out by creating new items, editing items, selecting items, moving items, editing dates, navigating, searching, tags, popovers. There's practically a command for everything. Actually, there's probably literally a command for everything that you would use in Things. It's pretty robust.
I mean, in fact, we wanted to drive home this point that the entire app is keyboard accessible. And so we made a fun little video. I'm not sure you saw it. It's on our blog post, where we basically recorded an interaction with the app that was about 5 minutes or so. We sped it up in the end. And the entire recording is just not touching the screen at all. Entirely to prove a point. I mean, of course, you're still allowed to touch the screen. But that was quite fun.
Yeah, it's just going to make me angry at all the other apps that don't allow me to just use the keyboard. Why do I have to touch the screen?
So was that sort of the goal going into it, was let's make it possible, sort of like, you know, you have this idea of a project or a series of tasks that you can perform, and you're like, I want to make this happen without ever needing to touch the screen. Is that how you went into it, or was it sort of this just came about over the course of developing the software?
Well, the goal was certainly not to never touch the screen. That was never it, because I think people will still touch the screen. It's perfectly fine doing that. It's just that in the state the app was before, and we had shipped, like I think in version 3.2 or so, we had shipped some preliminary keyboard support where we just had like 1 or 2 shortcuts just to get the basics there. But the app, like as you used it, it was a constant reaching for the screen. Like there's nothing you could have done without always having to lift your hand to touch the screen. And that was clearly not good. So we started taking that seriously. And for things, it's particular, I said it before, it's editing lists is what this app is about. And then opening individual items and navigating them with the tab key, you know, to jump through fields, all of that. We knew that was necessary. And in the process, it just didn't make sense to stop anywhere, really, because once you have the architecture in place of handling all of this, it's really just a matter of fleshing it out and supporting all of these commands. So yeah, it's certainly not a goal to never touch the screen, but you can
Right.
not touch it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, and I know you aren't the one that had to come up with type travels, and I know this is a bit of a marketing question, but let's say we've got listeners out there who aren't currently using Things 3. And we have listeners that are, you know, power users. We have listeners that are not power users. We have listeners everywhere in between. Can you tell us why this is sort of an app that anyone would want to download? What is the thing that you what are the things that you accomplish by getting this app?
Well, I mean, there's 2 parts of this question. One of them is specifically for the iPad and what we've released on it. But I think your question is more general. Why Things at all, right?
Because it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think my answer to that would be that I believe every person has projects in their life that they're working on. And you might not call them projects, but it's really anything you set out to do for yourself, for your work, because you want to be great at what you're doing. And I wouldn't say that a task manager is the right tool for everybody, but certainly for a whole lot of people, it's a very good place to externalize your thoughts, to put it into a form, to brainstorm a bit what you want to do next, and then fleshing it out. And you know, we've been around for quite some time now. It's, I think, 10 years. Yeah, more than 10 years, actually. And all this time, what we've labored over, what we really try to get right with this app, is having the app really disappear, so that to make this app do something, but rather, you know, that everything feels natural and simple. And it's not cluttered. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen if there's lots of buttons and controls everywhere, and all you want to do is focus on your task at hand, and the app gets in your way all the time. Okay, so I think we have a singular focus on that. Like, that is our guiding principle and has been for the last 10 years. Much more, I think, than many other apps out there.
Excellent.
So that's my pitch. And for the iPad, you know, we take the iPad very seriously as a computing device. We've certainly drunk the Kool-Aid. You know, we love the iPad since it came out. It's a marvelous thing, and if you attach a keyboard, it should be fantastic, and that's what we've tried to do with this update.
Great.
Yeah. It's so, and I can throw in a couple of little things, being a user on the consumer end of things. There's a couple of little things that are awesome. The app extensions. So I might, browse the internet, or something will pop up that a local restaurant will open up, And I can use the app extensions in Safari and send myself a note. Go eat at this place. I actually have a list of places to eat. And so I can use the app extensions to pass that in. And I don't use this all that often, but you can mail to things. You can set up this feature in the Things app that lets you mail yourself information. So it has like an email extension address that you use. And so you send, mine's like a series of numbers at things.com, and then type into it, take the dog for a walk or something like that. And it will populate as a list inside Things, which is actually a pretty great feature for some people. For me, I didn't use it as often as I thought I would, but it's a great feature to have. So it's the little extra things. It's a fantastic list making app, task manager app, if you will. But there's a lot of little features that just, I enjoy being able to use that. And Werner, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. There are two things that I want to see in future updates.
Okay.
I know.
I have to say yes to them, right?
This is what it's all. This is the only reason I brought you here.
Okay,
I'm just kidding. Okay, number one, I want a menu bar icon. I want things to always be in my menu bar on my Mac. I hate that I can't have just a little click down menu in my menu bar. So I want that.
I love, first, wait, really quickly, I love analyzing the body language as you're saying these things to try and see if, like, you say, no,
will it happen? Will it not?
Yeah. You say, oh, maybe we'll think about it.
And list sharing. I think some collaboration that there's a lot of people out there who do a lot of collaborating in lists, and I think that's a feature that might really make this like the penultimate list making app, is if I can share and collaborate in real time with other people on it. So that one, lesser so, menu bar icon, top number
Make it
one,
happen.
and collaborative lists is on my list too. So.
Okay, good. I mean, as a comment to what you said before, all these ways how you can enter stuff into Things via mail to Things. We have a quick entry on the Mac that you can bring up anywhere. There's action extensions on the iPad. All of this is a very important part, of course, because it's important to get thoughts out of your brain. So that's something we've invested a lot in. With regards to your feature requests, I've noted them and entered them into our system. No. I mean, the menu bar thing is something we have thought about in the past. It's not on the top requested feature that we're getting. So we'll think about it. But sharing lists, of course, is like a lot of people write in about that. And it's on our mind. What we have done so far is making sure that Things is a fantastic personal task manager. A lot of apps don't focus so much on the personal aspect of the software, and we just want it to be stellar in that respect. But I certainly understand the sharing list feature.
So when I downloaded and installed macOS Mojave and opened up the Mac App Store, guess what was right there on the front page of the Mac App Store? It was Things 3. So I mean, that feels pretty good. And by the way, did you notice how I segued?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So, I mean, that's pretty cool. What do you think about
well, I think it's fantastic. I mean, if you're talking about the redesigned App Store, I think it's great. I loved it when they introduced it on iOS. I think I don't have the numbers Apple does, but I'm certain it increased engagement in the App Store. It certainly has for me. I like checking it and scrolling through this Today tab. So that's a great thing. And if you're featured as a developer in one of those slots, that's a very high-profile spot to be in. So and the editorial content that they're writing is great. So I love it on iOS, and I assume it's going to be great on the Mac. At least from what we've seen, it looks great. So I'm very happy about it. Yeah.
You are not one of the app developers who didn't go to Mac and stuck on iOS, and we're calling it Marzipan, though it's still that's an internal name that we should actually stop using.
Right.
What do you think about this sort of future of iOS easily ported iOS apps, just in general as a developer?
Yeah, we actually thought about it now that we have keyboard shortcuts on the iPad app. Maybe that's
Yeah.
that's a great thing. Well, for us, it's certainly, we already have a great Mac app that we've invested a lot in and try to make it fantastic on the Mac. So it's not that we're immediately gaining something from this. It totally makes sense from Apple's part to want, to be able to tell iOS developers, hey, there's an easy path to get all these fantastic iPad apps that are out there on the Mac. How about you do it? So I think it's a very pragmatic move from Apple. How far we will be able to utilize it, I'm not certain yet, because so far it's private. I'm sure that in the coming year, a lot of it will change even or evolve. So it's a bit early to tell if that affects us.
I'm thinking, it's really hard work to build and maintain the kind of quality app that you have. But maybe if there's a way to port iOS to Mac OS, like maybe in the future you guys will have a second app that's, something a little bit smaller that, it's because you can port it to Mac. That's, a great bonus. So.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the updates that have come with WWDC overall, either personally or as part of Cultured Code. What are some of the things in any of the platforms that has you or you all excited to tinker around with, or just for your own personal use, get excited about?
I mean, personally, there's an area that has nothing to do with what we're doing here at Cultured Code. I'm very impressed by the ARKit stuff that Apple is doing. It seems to be evolving at a very rapid pace. We just had ARKit 1.5, now it's 2.0, and each one brings really great new features. So I think that's a very exciting path going forward. But as I said, not so much to do with
so
things.
What you're saying is there's going to be an AR to-do list.
Well, yeah. So
if there was someday going to be an Apple headset, and I could do my list making with my Apple AR headset,
right.
I would do that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we did think about it quickly, just when the technology came out, but it's clearly not a thing for the phone. Like, you wouldn't start the thing just to then go next to your to-dos and read them in the real world.
Right.
That's just not gonna happen. But sure, like presumably they're working on some glasses, so that makes it more interesting. How that will turn out, I guess we'll have to wait and see what Apple does.
It's probably not coming anytime soon, or at least not for maybe 6 more months. I don't know. Things are going fast, just like you said. So,
well, I don't think it's quite that fast.
Yeah,
we'll have to see. It's certainly very interesting. So anyway, that excites me personally. I have a bit of a graphics background myself, so that's I'm getting excited about that stuff.
Very cool.
But anyway, apart from that, on the Mac, I think dark mode is fantastic. I'm looking forward to that very much. It's also something people have requested for things independently of the OS. It's exciting. I've started using the dark mode in macOS since they introduced it, and so far it only meant the menu bar is dark
Right.
and the dock. But yeah, so I'm certainly looking forward to them.
What about this Siri shortcut stuff?
Yeah, that's the big one. Yeah, that's certainly a big one.
Yeah, I look forward to being able to add things to my list using Siri, things to my things list using Siri. So yeah.
Well, so I mean, we were lucky to be one of the domains that Apple introduced last year with iOS 11. So I'm sure they carved out certain domains that they thought would make sense with Siri interactions, and adding to-dos to reminders or to an app like Things was on that, and we shipped support for that. So you could already do that but with shortcuts, I think the breadth of it is much bigger. Like I didn't quite get it during the keynote, but then later I watched a session about shortcut, and there's a lot of work that these guys have put into it, and we're currently looking into that, seeing what it means, what use cases we can support. But we're very excited about it. I mean, just 2 releases ago or 3 releases ago, I think we created things URLs, which allow you to automate certain parts of the app using the workflow app or your custom built tools. So we're very interested in this area. A lot of our users want that, and Siri shortcuts is a perfect fit for this direction. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. Lori, do you have any other questions regarding WWDC in particular?
Well, you touched on the dark mode. You touched on the Siri shortcuts. I think like those are the things I'm most excited about, seeing the changes and things in the future. So they both sound good. So you were at WWDC for the entire week. What kinds of other sessions did you visit that kind of got you excited about the future of iOS and macOS and tvOS? I mean, I don't know, has things come into Apple TV?
Not really, no. No, I didn't watch any tvOS sessions either. I have a TV, an Apple TV. I love it. It's a fantastic device, but I don't think lists are on it. I mean, you can dictate lists on the HomePod, so that's cool. But yeah. Yeah, what other sessions? I don't know. Like what I was impressed by is that they did take time to focus on performance, because that's usually something that is a bit hard to get credit for. You know, like even we see that sometimes we have spent time on performance, and it can be a huge time sink. Like it's a very hard thing to performance optimize. And sometimes, you know, sometimes there's low-hanging fruit and you can easily optimize a few things and it's already twice as fast, which just shows you how bad the code was in the first place. But sometimes it's really hard. You're sitting there days, and you get, you know, 20% performance out of it. So I like very much that they've spent a lot of resources on that.
I got a question on Twitter. Somebody was asking whether or not performance in iOS 12 was actually as good as they were saying. So I just did a quick little test run on my iPhone SE versus my iPhone 10. And you know, the SE has always been just a little bit, you know, it's slow, it's sleepy, it starts up when it's ready, you know. And all I did was launch an app. I just ran the test on both of them, and it popped up just exactly as fast as on iPhone 10. And that's huge.
That's
impressive.
Mean,
there was not even a fraction of a second difference. They both popped up at the same time. I would have been really surprised if it happened faster on SE than 10, but the fact that it happened at the same time was just pretty phenomenal. And that's an example of just like, without even really digging into, you know, all the reasons why iOS 12 makes your phone faster. The SE is definitely one of the smaller. It doesn't have a lot of power, you know. It's got the power of a couple years ago. So that's a great way to kind of test, you know, is this really a faster using program? And I think when people who have iPhone 6, iPhone SE, when they get when they get iOS 12, they're going to be really surprised and really impressed with how fast it is.
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. I mean, I have an iPhone 10 and it's not really slow, but I know that, you know, a lot of people have older devices, and also the iPhone 10 will be slow sometime in the future, like 2 years from now. And the work they're doing now prolongs that lifespan into the future. So it's great. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Micah.
It's time. Before we head on to the second half of the show, I want to tell you all about our friends at Thrifter. Thrifter is a way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value, not hype. That means you're getting actual deals instead of those psychological tricksy tricks that people play to try to get you to buy things that actually aren't really on sale. If you go to thrifter.com, you're going to get thoughtfully selected deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy daily. It's all the stuff and none of the fluff. And it's also alerts to pre-orders and things like that. So Lori has gone to thrifter.com and has been perusing the site in the last moments. And so we're going to hear a good deal that she's come across there on thrifter.com.
Okay, so here's a great one. Let's make sure that it's still available. I think one time I told everybody about something that wasn't even available. Okay, yeah. So in case you didn't know, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate is coming to Nintendo Switch later this year, I believe in December. And at the same time, though they didn't even really announce it, they just kind of put a picture up and said, and you can use it with the GameCube controller. But they're actually making a brand new GameCube controller that will be available for Nintendo Switch. You can pre-order it right now. They literally haven't officially announced it, but it's up on Amazon. You can pre-order it now. And this is Thrifter finding this. Yesterday, I was really excited because I was able to pre-order my Pokeball Plus. I keep getting it mixed up with the Pokemon Go. It's not. It's the Nintendo Switch controller, the Pokeball Plus. And so I was telling everybody about it, and Daniel said, "Oh, there's this too, in case you didn't know." And I didn't, because it happened so fast. They popped it up so quickly. So this is an example of how Thrifter, not only do you find great deals, but you find pre-orders that nobody else knows about yet, so that you can pre-order things before they sell out.
Excellent. Yes. In fact, that's like one of the best sort of hidden features of thrifter.com. So go ahead and head there and sign up. You're going to get thoughtfully selected deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy, and even places like Home Depot and other hardware stores. I mean, it's all over the place. You're going to find great deals. It's all the stuff, none of the fluff. Head to thrifter.com, sign up. You'll get those deals sent right to you. Thanks so much to Thrifter for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. And let's take things back. So I think in the past, in whatever episode we had where we were talking a little bit about WWDC, we had talked about, obviously, our favorite things from the event and some of the stuff that people were getting excited about. I guess I'm curious, you talked a little bit, Werner, about the labs, or maybe the different talks that you went to. Mm-hmm. Whenever you attend WWDC, how much of that is, how do you sort of divide between maybe personal curiosity in those things, and then for professional curiosity, like the ones you need to attend because you want to learn something about right, the best way to do things?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this has changed, I think. We've been attending WWDC for some time now. And in the beginning, it used to be that you had to wait for the videos quite some while, or there weren't even any. I mean, there were, back in the day, they shipped you DVDs of them months later. So back then, I think attending WWDC and not going to the sessions that were relevant for you was a big mistake. These days, you can stream it whenever you want. And on my flight back, actually, it's funny. I took a flight from San Jose to Frankfurt, and pretty much looking hard at WWDC videos. So it was quite a sight. So yeah, a lot of pressure has gone away from actually attending what you need to, because you might as well do it later. So I certainly have started mixing it more. In the past I've attended the metal sessions, just because I'm interested. We won't be using metal in things, but
I don't know, it might be kind of cool if there was like a little troll that would come out and slash the screen for you when
Only a secret hidden feature that you'll get, like a special beta version, Lori, that has the AR, it's got the Mac menu bar, it's got a troll that comes out and slashes things.
Yeah, we actually joked, have you seen the Netflix show Stranger Things? Have you seen? Yeah. So when it gets when they're in this other world, there's like these flakes falling from the top. Well, we ship dark mode eventually on the Mac. It could be the Stranger Things release.
Fun animation to switch to dark mode.
It'll be upside down.
Yeah.
Thanks to metal on things.
Exactly. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. So
very cool.
Not likely.
Sort of mix it up. Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I'm glad you get to sort of mix it up, because that was kind of, you know, just as those of us who go as journalists, the main events are the big things, and maybe the State of the Union is another place where we have to get coverage. But other than that, it's sort of taking a step back on purpose to try and make sure that we're getting everything covered. And so it's interesting to hear, you know, from a developer's perspective. And I hadn't considered that, of course, just like me, you can go and stream them later if you want to. So I was thinking, it's like, oh, I got to get across to this lab before. Yeah. And can you, do you go to any of the labs, or do you just go to the talks? And if you could, like, I'm curious, what is, and again, this is just for people who may, you know, be thinking about attending WWDC in the future, or who just have the curiosity. What is the sort of function of a lab? I mean, do you find that you can get real help there?
So we definitely go to labs. It's usually like before DubDub, we make sure that we know about all the technical problems that we've encountered, that we kind of ran our head into and didn't get further. And then you file radars, and some of them we get responses for, some of them we don't. So the labs are a perfect place to talk right with the people who are in charge. Now, sometimes what that gets you is just an insight of how certain parts of the system actually work under the hood, because we can't look at the source code. But just knowing how stuff is implemented is already sometimes very, very helpful. So yeah, I would certainly say that's a good thing to do. But since you asked, like, what is the value of WWDC? Watching sessions you can do at home. The labs are certainly one part, but a huge part for me is just the community aspect of it. You know, so we spend just as much time hanging out in all the different events and parties and so forth that are happening, and talking to a lot of people, and that always, like, I always enjoy that part a lot about it. Getting to meet old friends, talking to new people. Attending the design award session, you know, where it's a little bit of a celebrity moment for our community. It's like, you know, the company giving you an award. That's awesome. Getting to know some of those guys. All of this makes WWDC special.
That's, you know, Serenity, who has gone to, I've been to 4, is it 4 now? Yeah, I think so. And 4 WWDCs, and Serenity's been to like 10, I think. And she was talking about how that's it, that it's not about the information as much as it's about the community. I mean, it's definitely about the information, but the community that is built around developers, app developers, coming to WWDC, meeting each other, just talking about their experiences, getting to know each other. She was talking about how I think there was at least 2 people she introduced me to that were at her wedding. And they were people that she met at WWDC, that she only sees a couple times a year, usually at WWDC. But she became so close with them. They're very close friends now. And that's it's pretty cool to see. There's groups of people who, I mean, how many friends in real life do you have that, you know, get super fanned out about Apple products? Most of my friends make fun of me for it. So when I go to WWDC, I can actually just like feel free to nerd out about Apple products and not get somebody behind me like snarkily commenting on how, you know, the next iPhone isn't as good as their Pixel or whatever, you know. So it's a great feeling and a great experience to be around people who are so excited and so into like design and app development and things like that. So I know what you mean about the culture of the community that happens at WWDC. Going to breakfast with people, lunches, dinners, like just meeting people.
Right. And I mean, it's funny, like we're based in Germany. And there's other developers that we know since a long time, like the Ulysses guys are here, you know, the MindNode guys are in Austria. It's all close by. But funny enough, we only meet once a year at WWDC of all places, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
So this just made me think of something. Do you have friendly competitions or even not so friendly rivalries with any other app developers? Like, you know, do you see any of the list making app developers at WWDC, and do you like throw them shade, or do you go up and chat with them and kind of talk about your experiences?
Yeah, no, so it's actually very, very friendly. I've talked, you know, OmniFocus is clearly one of our competitors, and I've talked to Ken, you know, I've known Ken for some time. And, you know, we have a great relationship. We talk about stuff. In the end, we're all in it together in a way, right? Fighting the same struggles, getting our apps out and so forth. So there's a lot of what unites us. And the business aspect, sure, it's there, but, you know, it's all about making great products, and the rest will come, you know.
Oh, I like that. That's really good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that we should discuss, because like we said, I think Siri, at least for WWDC this year, ended up being the big one, other than all of these performance fixes and things like that. But in terms of applying to what could possibly apply to Things 3, other than that awesome AR version we're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. And the Stranger Things ones. Yeah.
Oh, CarPlay things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. So that pretty much covers that. Is there anything else that you would, maybe a hidden feature or a not as discovered feature, or if you can't think of that, then maybe like your absolute favorite feature that anytime you get to talk about Things 3, you're like, hey, look at this, check this out, this is awesome. What's something that gets you excited, or is something that people should definitely be looking for in Things 3.6?
Okay, so I mean, regarding the DubDub announcements, I think we pretty much covered it. Like, those are the big ones, certainly, that we're going to look at. So there's a few smaller things that we need to support, but those are the big ones. Yeah, and with future releases that we're doing, it's like now we're going to focus on the new OSs. We want to make sure that we're in lockstep with Apple on that. With regards to my personal favorite feature in Things, it's on the iPhone. So for people who haven't used the app, what we shipped in Things 3.0 actually is what we call the Magic Plus button. And I'm not sure you guys have seen that, but maybe I should just hold it here. So
pulling up my things right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the plus button. We have it in the lower corner of the screen. And one of the things that we found was weird to do on an iPhone is creating a new to-do right at the place where you want it to be inside a list. So Laurie, what you're holding up is that's in the main list. But if you go inside a project, right, then you can just tap that plus button. But where should the to-do be created? Should it be created at the top, at the bottom? You have to pick some default location and then later have the user drag it around to the right place. And that's very tiresome, especially if there's a long list that you're editing. And so what you can do in Things is you can actually take that button with your finger and just drag it at the place where it's supposed to.
I never even realized that you could do that.
That's awesome. There you
go.
Clearly, we need to be better at marketing. If you didn't know that, but this is
the thing is that there are so many features in Things that there's a little discovery to be done. You know, actually, we already have plans in place for some beginners guides and how-to guides for Things, just because there are so many features in the app. So I'll make sure that the movable plus button gets added to our Things you can do.
Wait, what did you call it though? It had a name.
Well, Magic Plus.
The Magic Plus button. I love it.
Magical. And actually, another feature we have in Things is you can divide up your lists with headings, because we find that once you start creating lists, you need additional structure, and we don't want to hide that in some hierarchy, but headings are a perfect fit. So any project you can split up by headings. And then with the magic plus button, you can also create these headings if you drag all the side to the screen. So it's a very natural flow of interaction once you know this. So yeah, I'm very excited about this, because for me this made a huge difference in how useful the app is on the go, even on the iPhone. Like I find myself even fleshing out entire projects on my phone while I'm walking or something, which I previously didn't do. So that gets me excited.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it up, Lori Gill. What do you think?
I'm thinking we have a little bit of a short episode today. Some people are going to be happy about that. I think that sometimes people think we talk too much. So
yes, we do tend to go a little long, and it's always nice to have a guest on and let them share most of the spotlight there. So I of course want to thank everybody for listening out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you who tuned in live. Werner, if people are looking for you online, where can they go to find you?
Well, I do have a Twitter account. It's @Jajnek, which is my last name. I'm not really tweeting that much. I'm a bit late to the whole tweeting thing, but I did find it very interesting recently as a passive consumption thing. But you can tweet at me. I'll look at it.
Can you spell your Twitter handle for us?
Yeah, that's JAINEK.
Nice that you were able to get that, even if you were sort of a latecomer to
well, I got it way back in the day, but I never really used it. Yeah.
That's smart. That's how you do it. That's how you keep your name. Excellent. And of course, you can check out Cultured Code, and we'll have links to Things 3.6 in the show notes. So check all of those things out, and the magic plus button.
Exactly.
Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can't find me at Lori Gill, unfortunately, because I, like an idiot, had gotten rid of okay, so this is what I'm going to say. Anybody who's listening, do me a favor and at Twitter and tell them to give me back my handle. and we'll see if that helps. My handle that I used to have and got rid of, and it got snatched up, and now it's just being sat on. Nobody's using it. Used to be at Lori Gill, LORYGIL. I'm saying that so that those people who are going to at Twitter for me know how to spell it. But right now you can find me at Appaholic. That's APPAHOLIK.
Excellent. If you are looking for me online, you can find me at Micah Sargent on Twitter and other social media places. You can also head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee. No, I'm not lying. That really is a website that I have where you can see links to all the things that I do, like the Too Many podcasts that I do. If Renee were here, he would tell you that you could find him at Renee Ritchie, or you can check out vector.show. If Serenity were here, she would tell you you could find her at SETTERN on Twitter and Instagram. And if our dear pal Georgia Dow were here, she'd tell you could find her at Georgia_Dow on Twitter. Thanks so much to Jim Metzendorf for editing the show and making us sound lovely every week. We will be back, of course, next week with more from the iMore show. And last but not least, it's just time to tell you all, thank you so much for tuning in and being the best audience out there. I hope you have a great rest of your week or weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you
Thanks
guys.
for coming on the show, Werner.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.